A short time ago, I thought I had delivered myself of the last of my autobiography. Then Jean died. I poured out my anguish and despair in an article about her life and its end, calling it The Death of Jean. I declared it the final chapter of my autobiography. But later, on request, I added an explanatory sketch on how it came about that I had spent my life in literature. I called this the turning point of my life. Now, though, I realized that was not enough, and I am going to write here, in my own hand, not dictated, an expanded version of that sketch. I feel the need to record some reminiscences that, to the insightful reader, will shed light on what made me who I became, the events and circumstances that formed me and found their way into my writings, in ways both plain and direct, and in ways more subtle. These were the turning points of my life, as it were. As to the reason for writing this in my own hand, after enjoying the luxury of just talking and having someone else take down my words, as I did with my autobiography, I am spurred on by the intrepid example that General Grant left a quarter of a century ago, and want to make sure that Clara and my grandchild, whoever it may turn out to be, are sufficiently provided for. I don't expect to live out the year. That tramp and derelict of the skies, Halley's Comet, is about to make its long-awaited return. I came in with the comet in 1835, when it heralded the coming of this unaccountable freak, and its return will be the harbinger that it is time for me to go. Besides, as already referred to, I recently discovered that Clara is pregnant with my first grandchild, and I don't want to meet him or her. Do you find this a strange sentiment? It is, because then I should form a bond of affection with the baby, and should then necessarily want to overstay my welcome on this planet, and set myself up for a too drawn-out departure. It is time. The time for my exit from the world stage. This is my absolute and final encore. As alluded to, I have previously recorded my notablest successes and failures, as well as my most interesting and amusing experiences in my autobiography. There is no reason to dredge all that up again here. My aim herein is to be as truthful as possible, thus rejecting the common custom of infusing one's deathbed utterances with either false modesty or unwarranted bravado. There's a breed of humility which is itself a species of showing off, and I will try to keep that sort of humility out of this. I will present the events that made a significant impact on me, without necessarily expounding on precisely how they affected me. The reader can supply that himself by simply soliloquizing. How would this event have affected me had I been in Twain's shoes? Your answer to that question will probably be close to how I was affected and what it did for me, or to me. For the most part, I will simply briefly recount the events that impressed me the most, those that had the most profound influence on my thoughts and personality. I will leave it to the reader and the future scholars and scourers and analyzers to connect the dots and make their own psychoanalysis. They can say what they will, for I will not be around to defend myself or care. Let it go. With this record, I want to make it manifest that when people, while thinking of me, envision in their mind's eye simply cigar smoke and jokes, they may only be considering me superficially, from a distance. It is often so that we do not deal much in facts when we are contemplating ourselves. Every man is wholly honest to himself and to God, but not to anyone else. Still, a work of this sort, a swan song, as it were, is the truest of all books. For while it inevitably consists mainly of extinctions of the truth, shirkings of the truth, partial revealments of the truth, with hardly an instance of plain, straight truth, the remorseless truth is there between the lines, where the author cared is raking dust upon it, which hides from the disinterested spectator neither it nor its smell. The result being that the reader knows the author in spite of his wily diligences. But it is not necessarily my intention for this book to ever be published. I am writing it mainly to get these things off my chest and be done with them. I shall hide this manuscript in a spot that few would ever think to look, and it is probable that it won't be found for many decades, and quite possible that it will never be unearthed at all. This should not be understood to intimate that I am going to literally bury it in the ground, as you will know if you are reading this and have found it, or have been posted on where it was found. If this self-eulogy is discovered while either Clara, my grandchild, or perhaps even grandchildren are still living, my will is that they be the ones to benefit from anything it brings in the way of pecuniary results. My only demand is that it be printed in its fullness, without anything being subtracted from it or modified, not even its orthography or punctuation. If none of the above named are yet living on its discovery, let the Stanley who finds it be the benefactor of its harvest. Let it go. Let me go.